Me love this Bizarro. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Today, I'm taking a look at the new DC Multiverse Gold Label Classic Bizarro. That said, it is Bizarro, so I'm going to be doing things a little bit backwards. Starting with the price, and depending on where you get him, Bizarro's going to set you back either $26 or $23. The figure is what's called first to market, which means GameStop got him first, and then everyone else will get him afterwards. If you were wondering, GameStop is where you get him for $26. Fortunately, I have seen him at Walmart, so there are options. Between the piece count and the wired cape, it's actually a really good value. That is, unless you get it at GameStop. Held back only by the distribution method, and for price, I'm giving Bizarro 4 points, averaging out to a grand total of 3.8 out of 5. Now let's work our way backwards to find out why. If you're enjoying this video so far though, do me a favor and give it a like. Also, for those who want to contribute to the channel and help me make even more content, I now have an account with Ko-fi. Link to that in the description below. Moving on to Playability, and again, this Bizarro has a lot of value in box. As we'll see though, the biggest issue is finding which Superman to scale him with. First things first, and let's try out some head swaps. First up, and I wanted to see how this Bizarro scaled alongside DC Classic, and honestly I think this works really well. As always, those Hulk hands are going to be an issue, and of course you'd have to figure out how to flip that logo. Another option would be using the original page punchers. This gives you that darker color scheme, and hey, you could always use the sign to minimize the fact that you don't have the right logo. Next up, and here we have Hush, which I want to look at for a couple of reasons. You'll want to swap out for a longer neck peg, but if you do, I think there's a lot of potential here. For a lot of collectors, Hush is still their go-to Superman, so this would come the closest to matching that classic feel. That said, the Hush head is so sharp and angular, I think with a repaint it could be a Bizarro head of its own. It scales pretty well, and honestly wouldn't take that much work. Next, and for one that I've been really curious about, and here we have Christopher Reeve. Reason being that my introduction to Bizarro was actually the Superboy TV show. That costume, of course, was based on Christopher Reeve's, so to my eye, this is in a very similar vein. That said, I would be remiss if I didn't show you how it looked on the corrupted version. For those who prefer Bizarro to have that darker color scheme, this is a lot of fun. As for the main Superman of my display and the body I really wish that they had done Bizarro on, here we have the Silver Age digital version. And yep, this is pretty much exactly what I wanted. With the Silver Age Superman having just come out, this would have been the perfect companion piece. That said, I have been thinking about Earth 2. Now that I have the Silver Age version, I don't really need this one anymore. I mean, heck, the logo is barely on anyway. And if you're okay with the idea of Bizarro being a more washed out version of Superman, this could work. Let me know in the comments if you think I should pull the trigger on this. For one option I find particularly interesting, and here we have the mulleted Return of Superman. What's fun about this one is that the blues match so well you can swap the arms and legs. I'm not entirely sure how good those legs look, but you can do it. Unfortunately, that right arm gave me some trouble, so I decided to leave it be. This is my strong hand. Conversely, you could always do this if that floats your boat. That said, if you prefer your Man of Steel, or by extension Bizarro, a bit more swole, then here's what that looks with the full body. The question you might ask yourself though is, where do I get a Bizarro logo? You can get it from the Bizarro 2-pack, which shares the exact same body. I still think this body looks a bit on the silly side. Still, I'm okay with Bizarro being a bit more monstrous or larger than life, and if you wanted him to go on your regular comic display, this head is a great fit for it. Other way around, and here's the Ed McGuinness head on the classic body. It's weird to see it without the Ed McGuinness proportions, but if you like something a bit more stylish, this is a very fun head sculpt. For McFarlane's first foray with Bizarro though, and here we have this one. First things first, and let me say that this head sits a bit too low on this body, and the peg isn't one that you can easily swap out for a longer one. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's gonna take a bit of extra creativity. That said, it could be argued that the head sits a bit too high on this one. Still, the grays and the proportions match up very nicely, and overall I think I just like this better. Lastly, and I want to take a look at Superman the Infected. I love how this looks. For the longest time, people were customizing Bizarro by combining the infected body with the Bizarro logo from the previous figure. I think if you did that, but with this head, it would be perfect. For comparison, and here's how that looks alongside Hush. Here it is alongside a couple of Action Comics 1000, looking nice and monstrous. Likewise, the proportions are pretty great with DC Classic, and while Silver Age might be a little bit taller, there are some tricks I can use to make this Bizarro a bit taller as well. I don't know. know, I think we have a winner. And don't worry, I have not forgotten about the Silver Age logo swap video. As for side-by-side comparisons with other characters, and as always, here's Bizarro with Stealth Iron Man. I am so confused. For a relative scale comparison, and here he is with Spectacular Spider-Man and Pizza Spidey, but for some other Superman villains, and here's Bizarro with the Ghost of Krypton Brainiac, along with Injustice 2 Brainiac, the Rebirth era General Zod, the Target exclusive Secret Origins Metallo, this version of Bizarro's creator Lex Luthor, and the modern version of Cyborg Superman. This is a perfect segue to a couple of versions of Supergirl. Why? Because modern Cyborg Superman is Supergirl's father. Between the two, the Page Punchers version seems to match Bizarro best. Beyond that, and here we have Superboy, soon to be replaced with a more proper reign of the Superman version, John Henry Irons, whose steel mask can't hide the shame of his droopy hammer, the Collector Edition Power Girl, who towers over all, and then for the Supermen we didn't swap with, here's the Atomic Skull 2-pack, the original Action Comics 1000, and the Gold Label Action Comics 1000, upon which this Bizarro was based. But playability is more than just how well your figure plays with others, it's also about accessories. One of my favorite play features, of course, is the wired cloth goods cape. They just create so many display options, and one thing that's cool about this one is that they also included the Bizarro logo on the back of the cape. Granted, it's a bit more orange than the yellow of the rest of the costume, but it's still a very nice feature I appreciate. He also has his Bizarro #1 sign. It's sculpted and painted nicely enough, and is reused from the Bat Zorro 2-pack. Honestly though, that's smart reuse, so I'm not going to complain about that. Bizarro #1! If you were wondering why he has this sign, it's because there's a whole Bizarro world, and this was to help him distinguish himself from all the other Bizarros. As for hands, and throughout the video we've seen this left-handed fist and this right-handed grab hand, because God forbid after all these years Action Comics 1000 gets a right-handed fist, but Bizarro does have a pair of flight hands, which is very much appreciated. Me flying! Lastly, and Bizarro comes with a trading card and a figure stand, which you can read by pausing here. For playability, Bizarro gets 4 points. Moving on to Poseability, and as we'll see, the articulation on this figure is mostly good, except of course for the outdated and frankly obsolete single-jointed elbows. Working our way bottom up, and Bizarro has McFarlane style ankles that can pivot, hinge, and like the order of this video, swivel. He's also got toe articulation, and then working our way up the leg, Bizarro has double jointed knees with a nice deep bend, though not quite as much swivel in the thigh as I would like. He does, however, have a perfect split, can bend his leg back this far, and get a 90-degree kick, all thanks to those standard-style McFarlane hips. Shifting to the torso, and Bizarro has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist. That allows for twist, as well as side-to-side tilt, and what might be the most Bizarro turn of all, his hunch forward is actually surprisingly good for a McFarlane figure. For context, and here he is standing straight, and then here's his arch back, which is what I want to see in a flying character. Here's what that looks like for those who are wondering. As for the wrists, they can either hinge side to side, or up and down, and swivel thanks to these wrist balls. Single jointed elbow this time, which is a real bummer. In fact, he only just barely gets a 90-degree bend. Fortunately though, there's no trouble with the bicep swivel, and of course there is that extra forward and back thanks to the rotator cuff. The arms themselves get complete rotation at the shoulder, and can raise just above 90 degrees. As for his head, he can look all the way around, has a fantastic amount of tilt, and not only can he really bury the chin, if you push down too hard the whole thing pops off. For reference though, here he is looking straight, and here he is looking up, which isn't quite as much as I'd like, but still pretty good. Thanks to a better than average hunch forward, I would give Bizarro 5 points, but because of those single jointed elbows, instead, for Poseability, Bizarro gets 4 points. Moving on to presentation, and there are certain things I like, but other choices I find frankly frustrating. My main source of frustration is the base body that McFarlane used. Between Fleischer, Silver Age, and Kingdom Come, the Earth 2 body has become the de facto Superman buck for me and for a lot of collectors, so going with the now outdated Action Comics 1000 body feels like a step in the wrong direction. Granted, the Rebirth/Hush body got their own version of Bizarro. Still, I also have to acknowledge the fact that there are people for whom Action Comics 1000 is their main Superman, and those collectors need an appropriate Bizarro for their shelf. If the gold label is your preference, the logos go fairly well together, that being because both of them have metallic red paint, but this Bizarro's color scheme is much lighter than this Superman, so it's up to you as to how well you think it goes together. In terms of color coordinating, Bizarro is a much closer match to the Atomic Skull 2-pack, but not only does he have a plastic cape, the emblem style is very, very different. Same thing if your preferred Superman is the original Action Comics Comics 1000. Either way, you can distract from the logo by using his medallion. That said, I do still hope we get one on this body before it's too late, but again, that's what head swaps and customs are for. On that note, the head is a brand new sculpt and pretty nicely done. While it's not quite as cubey as I'd like, it's still very craggy and harsh, and you know it's a reverse version of a DC Multiverse Superman because he's actually smiling. I do appreciate the fact that they painted the neck to match, but that head is just so textured that the clash really stands out. One thing I do want to give McFarlane credit for, though, is that they did resculpt the forearms. The regular Action Comics 1000 has these chevrons around the wrist, but McFarlane resculpted them to make them normal sleeves. If you're going to go to that trouble, though, why not resculpt the arms altogether to make them double jointed? Or, for that matter, use a body you don't need to resculpt. But I digress. The figure stands at about 18 centimeters, or 7 1/8 inches. For presentation, I'm giving Bizarro 3 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the packaging. For those hoping to buy their Bizarro in-store, here's the UPC, and then on the back is some classic-style Bizarro artwork, and call Bill Engvall, cause here's your sign. The spine tells us this Bizarro is from DC Classic, with names and logos up front, and the gold label sticker in the corner. As I said in price, though, this is just a first-to-market and not a store exclusive. For packaging, I'm giving Classic Bizarro a good 4 points. As for which Bizarro is best, that's a debate for another day. For more Bizarro while you wait, check out one of these, and until next time, play nasty and be miserable.